Hello everyone, Fru here. Welcome to today's presentation. In today's presentation, we're going to look at integrating Kafka data into Snowflake. A couple of things we're going to look at is setting up Snowflake, which is really easy to do. It's delivered as a service. We're going to look at setting up Confluent Kafka to connect to Snowflake. So we're going to create a cluster that we're going to be using for this exercise. We're going to connect that cluster to our Snowflake environment. And at the end, we're going to automate it all with Python to build an end-to-end pipeline for streaming IoT type data from a source into your Kafka cluster, which then writes the results into Snowflake in a very easy and in a very streamlined fashion. We know the world is at that increased acceleration and people want data faster, quicker, increased volume, increased velocity. And a platform to accomplish that is using a message broker in the middle like Kafka, which then writes into a highly performant data store analytic platform like Snowflake for analysis downstream. So this is going to be a really exciting demonstration, a walkthrough, and I'm going to leave timestamps across the video. So if you want to skip through any particular area of the video, you're more than welcome to do so. If you want to follow end to end, you're also more than welcome to do so. And if you do like the video, make sure you subscribe to our channel. That said, we're going to go into the Snowflake piece of it, which is setting up Snowflake. Super easy. There's really nothing nothing new to do there. Go to Snowflake. You can create a trial account like I did here, and you can have an environment up and ready, highly performant, elastic, scalable data warehouse in the cloud, which you can use to store your data and to do analysis. So for the creation of Snowflake, it's super easy. All you got to do, just sign in with your username and password, and you're all ready to go. Now, I'm going to assume you have a Snowflake account for this exercise. So I'm not going to really focus on a Snowflake tutorial here. I just assume that you have one, you have a data warehouse or databases, and you have some compute clusters that you can use. And this is what we're going to be using for our presentation or the demo going forward. So my account, of course, is in Central. It's just a trial account here. You can have yours as such. Now, assume that you have your Snowflake account set up, again, which is really easy to do. You can create a free trial account. Now we're going to go ahead to set up the Kafka Confluent cluster. And to do that, you can use open source Kafka if you want. Confluent is just the hosted version of Kafka. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in, and I have my account already. Create a new account if you don't have one. And we're going to log in there. And from here, it's going to allow us to create a cluster which we're going to use. So to create a cluster is extremely easy. Once you log in, just basically add new cluster. Use the basic cluster just to keep it super easy. And what we're going to do now here is begin configurations. All right. And you want to select your cloud provider. In this case, I know my Snowflake, and you want to keep this in the same region, is in Canada Central. For some reason, I'm using Canada Central for the demo. So I want to pick the same region as my Snowflake, just so we're in the same region. And the zone, I'm just going to keep it as a single zone. Go ahead and leave the default. So remember the name, cluster 1, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that cluster. It takes about a second or so, and my cluster will be up and ready. And we're going to come back once the cluster is up and ready for us to use. All right, a few seconds there, and my cluster should be up and ready for me to use. So we're just going to check that, making sure we can create a topic. That just tells me the cluster is up, and you can check the cluster configurations. It tells us the cluster is up and it's ready for us to use. Now, the next thing we're going to do is connect our Kafka cluster to Snowflake so that we can get messages from Kafka and then write that into Snowflake using the Kafka connector for Snowflake. So to do that, let's go back into our cluster environment. And there are a couple of things that we're going to have to do. Number one, if you're ingesting data, you're going to be interested in ingesting data through a topic. So in this case, I'm going to simulate doing some IoT demo for YouTube. So I'm just going to call it IoT YT, standing for YouTube demo. Let's actually call it Tech with Fru demo. and number of partitions. You can keep the default in here, nothing too fancy. So now I have a topic in Kafka, super easy for us to create. And if you wanted to, you can create mock messages in here, but the messages are not going to go anywhere. We need to sync this into a destination. And this is where the Kafka connectors come into play. So go ahead, click on connectors. And what we're going to do here is we're going to find the Snowflake sync connector, which is using the highly performant Snowflake connector behind the scenes to write that data into the Snowflake environment. So what we do here now is, of course, to do a sync, we need a topic to sync from. So let's go ahead, select the topic we just created, IoT Tech with Fruit Demo. And now we've got the ability to connect the environment to the Snowflake environment, which we have in here. So just a couple of configurations that we're going to use. What is the message format we want? We want JSON. You can choose Avro or any other format you want. JSON is really easy for us to do. Now, for an API key, Kafka needs this. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate the API key. This is a temporary key. I'm going to delete this right after this demo. So don't bother copying this key. And what I'm going to do with this key is I'm just going to go ahead, copy this because we're going to use this at some point. And I'm also going to copy this secret because we're going to use it at some point. And if you want, you can just download and copy and save that somewhere that you can use for the future. All right, now we've got our key all ready for us to use. For the URL, what we need is we want to go back to Snowflake and we're going to copy this URL. And that's what we need to authenticate into a Snowflake account. And the user we're going to be using is my user here in this demo account that I have, and it's called Tech with Fruit. And now for private key, this is a little bit of a different key. This is not the key we created for Kafka. This is the key for your Snowflake user. So this is how you're going to authenticate into Snowflake. So the way you get that key is you want to go to Snowflake, generate a public private key using some key gen or something else to use, an RSA key. And once you have that, attach the key to the user. So basically, author user, and then set that key, the public key, and then you want to keep the private key. There are other instructions on how to do this key pair authentication to Snowflake. You want to go ahead and do that before this demonstration. That's what we're going to need. So make sure you set that up for the user. And once you set up your public key in here, the private key is what we're going to put in this location. So copy everything inside of your private key, and that's what we're going to paste in here. Now, the database we're going to be using in this case, I'm just going to go with the demo DB, which is a very easy database. So demo underscore DB. And the schema, let's just be very boring, and we're going to use a public schema. And the rest is just easy. You can just keep default, and then I'm going to put 1 in there for the number of tasks, just because I'm not going to be loading a lot of data. And you can see my configurations here showing up on the right side. So for this, you're just going to go ahead, click next. You can save this if you want for future use, but I think at this point, it's just all basic. There is some cost to this. So let's go ahead and launch this piece now. And what this is going to tell us is it's provisioning our sync. All right. So this is now reaching out into Snowflake, provisioning the sync. And a couple of things are happening behind the scenes. It seems trivial. But what is happening is if we go over to Snowflake and we do a refresh here, what it's going to do is it's going to create the task on the Snowflake side and the stages that would copy the data into Snowflake tables. So if you understand how Snowflake works, is you have an internal stage and you can put data into the internal stage and then use a copy into command to bring that into a Snowflake table. You can do all of that manually, but the connector that is being provisioned here is doing that for us behind the scenes. So let me go back in here. Let's go to databases, demo DB. Let's click on that. Let's check for stages. It's going to create a stage here for us. And this is a stage that's going to use to copy the data into our table. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes here for us as we set this all up. Now, it takes a few minutes. I'm going to pause the video. Oh, actually, it came before I was going to pause the video. Everything's all set up. and it's running. So our sync is running on the Snowflake side. And let me do a quick refresh here. There is no stage here as of the date of this video, just because I need to send some messages. All right, so let's go back in here. We've connected Snowflake to Kafka. We've created a sync, but we need to send some test messages to make it show up on the Snowflake side. So I'm going to go back into Confluent Kafka with my sync running and successful. You want to make sure this is successful. Let's go back into the topics. And this is the topic that we had. You can generate some sample messages here just to see, as a producer, to see the data coming through. So what I'm going to do is just go to produce. It allows me to generate sample messages here. And if I produce those messages would make it to Kafka, and Kafka is going to sync it into Snowflake. All right. So this message is a JSON message. It's going to make it to Kafka. So let's produce maybe, I did 1, let's do 2, and then maybe 3 or so. All right, another one. So we've got 3 messages in my Kafka broker, and it's going to take care of sending this over to Snowflake just like that. Now, the next piece is we're going to automate the producing of the messages, but just using this test capability within Confluent, you can produce those messages. And now, if I go back, it takes a few minutes or so for this to propagate through the internet. And if I go back into Snowflake, do a refresh here, now you see I have a stage that has been created automatically by that connector. And this is the demo that we created, IoT Tech with Fruit Demo, which was my topic name, if you remember that. So that's all good. So we have a stage in there. Now I want to make sure that if we look at tables, now it's created a table for us automatically. I did not have this. So IoT Tech with Fruit Demo, the table now has been created, again, keeping in sync with with our topic name. So all of this is automated for us. Pretty powerful, pretty easy to follow along. Let's go back into my query window, and if I refresh this, now I see that in here. And if I preview that with any log, it takes a few minutes or so, maybe about a minute, depending on how busy it is. This is just a demo account, so I don't expect it to run too fast. And my data should show up in here. I'm going to pause this for about a minute or so, and we're going to come back. Let me try this before I pause it again. Hopefully data will show up. It takes a minute. Voila, it did take over a minute or so, and my data now shows up here within Snowflake. So if I go ahead and preview that, you see the 3 records we generated on the Kafka side have been streamed through the pipelines into Snowflake, and the message shows up here as a JSON format. And a couple of things to pay attention to here with these messages is basically it doesn't pass that out into the schema. So it's basically you have the metadata here, which is really good. And now you have the payload in here into Snowflake as a variant column. And this is really unique for folks that worry about the schema changing down the line. Well, you can always load your data in true ELT fashion, and that data never breaks. All right. If my schema changes, my column changes, my JSON document payload changes, you can always load your data. And if you want to consume this data, all you have to do is go ahead, create a view on top, use dot notation, and we can pass out this data. So I'm just going to go ahead, select from that table as such, and key in on this record content and bring out the specific attributes using dot notation for passing out JSON. If you're not familiar with dot notation, you can look it up. Snowflake dot notation allows you to flatten out JSON, and now I have that data set pretty flattened out. If I wanted to, I'm going to put that in the view. We can go ahead and select from that view, and the view is what the customers or the users get exposed to as my IoT data is being streamed in. So let's just select from the view. I have even more records, and the more records we generate on this side, the view is going to be consumed by the user. So I can either consume my raw data, or I can consume from this view, which is what the users would want. So really interesting, but let's continue. Let's go back in here. You've seen me manually generate messages to my Kafka cluster, and it's streamed into Snowflake in a very streamlined fashion. But what if we want to see how we can automate this, say using an actual producer? So this could be events coming from a manufacturing floor. This could be IoT devices that have sensors, and we're streaming this data into Kafka, and the results will show up in Snowflake. So I'm going to use a producer in Python to simulate that data coming from a manufacturing floor, where we're trying to predict what part is going to fail, or how can we do predictive maintenance, or how can we fix machines, or where is my logistics at any point in time as it transports across the world. So lots of interesting use cases there. Let's see how we automate this with Python. Let me just check here one more time. Select star from there, and we have more messages coming in here live. All right, and we can always go back and look at that base table just to see the raw messages. So through ELT, you load and then you transform. So we're loading into this table in a raw format, and then we're transforming using this view for consumption that end users can consume and make sense out of it. And we can have different versions of this. So let's switch gears now into the next phase and see how to automate all of this with Python. The beauty about it is Confluent and Snowflake, they have a really good connector, or if you check out the clients, which you can use to connect from Python or from Java to be your producer. So I've done that already in here. This is a little code that I have, very simple, just a couple of lines of code. And I'm just going to connect to my Kafka environment. And the way you get that Bootstrap server is you want to go back to Confluent, check your cluster configuration, copy this. That's what we need for our Bootstrap server. And just go ahead, paste that. It doesn't change very much. And we're going to authenticate using SSL. And my username and the password, remember when we downloaded the username and the password, that's what you need in this case. All right. I'm going to paste mine here. Don't bother copying this because this cluster is going to be blown away right after this demo. So it's not going to be of use to anyone that wants to copy this. So I can be pretty unsecure here. In the ideal world, you want to pass this in a secured parameter fashion. But again, this is just a demo, and I'm going to blow away the cluster right after this. The topic we're working with is to make sure we go back to our topic, IoT Tech with Fruit topic. That's the topic we're working with. I'm going to make sure that that topic name is the same in right here in Python. All right. And the message I'm going to send is going to be just a JSON message I've written here. And we're going to create a producer using that configuration. And we're going to produce to the topic, which we've defined. Key, we're just going to keep it standard. Let's say, let's just call this IoT Demo YT. You can use anything as a key. You can make that into a configuration and pass that. And then the payload is going to be the message we're going to send. All right. And then once I'm done, I'm going to flush this and then write something on the screen. Pretty basic. And a couple of things you want to do here is important things that I really don't need is you want to get the Confluent Kafka, right? You need to import this library for all of this to work. So that should be something you import. Now, once we have this, I'm just going to go ahead and run this here. And this is IoT Producer Demo. So let's go ahead, run that. All right. It's written one message for us. And the message has through in there. And if you go back into my topic and I check my messages with some luck, we should see that message come through here. And because I have a sync, well, I think it might have sent it already. Now, because I have a sync, that message should just flow through to my topic and then make it all the way to into Snowflake. All right. Again, like I said, it takes a few minutes or so. At some point, we should see my name showing up here. I believe I had the name. Yep, that name should show up at some point in one of those messages. Let's check the raw side of things. All right. A new message should come in here, which should have through, and you can always check the messages. And once that message comes through, we should see that, and we can flatten it all out. It takes a few seconds or so, and the message should come through. But what I'm gonna do in the meantime is I'm gonna automate this with a very simple for loop, so that this can run in a very automated fashion. All right, so let's go back in here, check it one more time to see if that message has come through. It just takes a few minutes or so. There you go. There you have it. So now my message has come out here. My name is showing up, and I can process this as I want. All right, so really interesting. So very interesting. Now, what we're going to do is let's actually make this run in true IoT format. So I'm just going to put this in a quick for loop. Just put that in a range, make the range 100. So I'm just going to iterate to 100. And as that is running, I'm going to produce this message. So we're going to produce 100 messages. And if you wanted to, you can do a sleep in here or a wait function. I think my time is gone, but I remove my time function, but you can do something in there to pause it every now and then. But for now, let's just keep this as simple. It's just going to produce a lot of messages pretty quickly and send that into my topic, 100 messages. And if I run this, it's going to produce 100 messages. Think about this is sensor data coming from your manufacturing floor. You're writing that message into a Kafka topic, and Kafka in no time is taking that data, writing it into Snowflake. Think about the speed to insight of being able to take this and do analysis. So we've sent 100 messages. If you wanted to, I really don't want to blow this up. I can maybe send some 10 more. Let's call this YouTube, so that the name is a little bit different. So you guys see this is all live messages, and I can put the number. You can do some more fancy stuff, which I'm not gonna do here. Let's just run this. Here 10 more messages have come through, and now if we go back into Snowflake and we check in here, after a while we should see, I think we've gotten a couple more, 2 more messages, and the 10 messages that we got would be refreshed, and they're all gonna show up here pretty quick. Again, it takes about a minute or so. So I'm gonna pause the video. After a minute or two, I'm gonna come back and you can see the results. All right, it did take a second or so, but the results have made it through and propagated into my Snowflake table. So you can see all the IoT data showing up. And a couple of things to call out here, which is really unique with this architecture approach, is now, because this is kind of a key value pair, I have my key in here, which can always change, and my value basically contains the payload of what's coming through from Kafka. And you can see I have different versions of, or different schemas of the Kafka payload coming in, but my data, my database hasn't broken, right? So truly ELT, you can load in any format you want and your job doesn't break. All right. And now my schema doesn't cause any issues. I have YouTube coming, I have Furu coming in, I have the ones in with address coming in, and we can just really create a true data lake in any format. And if I want to process this, like we saw before, I can create a view that can read the data, passing out the address. And that is my view there called V2. And now V2 can be sent to the sales team and they can process data that way. Now I can have a V3, which is a little bit of a different format, which is processing the second data set that we just created. All right. And this V3 could be for the team in Japan, or for the team in Tokyo, or for the team in the finance department that want a different structure of the data. And if I select data from V3, it passes the data in a little bit of a different way. So now I'm getting location, languages, and name. In my other view, I was getting V2 view. I'm getting something different. I'm getting zip code, address, and such. Different views all consuming the same base data. That is truly unique. This is how you achieve schema evolution. This is how you achieve agility, where you can load all your data using the infinite or the near infinite compute and power of Snowflake and the agility of the platform to process that data and deliver results for your business. This could be powering a Tableau report. This could be powering a Power BI report. And you have a true end-to-end pipelines where from the source Let's put 50 more records in here just because I like to send more data. You're generating data, and that data is flowing through Kafka cluster, which we have here, and you can see the messages coming through. And as the messages are coming through, you can see new messages, and it's all making it into Snowflake real time, where we have a view on top of that for consumption. So truly powerful, truly powerful. Let's bring this all back home, what we've seen here today. We've seen how to set up Snowflake, super easy, delivered as a service. You can get a free trial account. It takes you seconds to get on the platform with elasticity. Running across all the different cloud providers, AWS, GCP, Azure. You can set up a Confluent cluster, which is pretty easy to do. You can set it up as a service using Confluent Cloud. Once you have both, you can create a Confluent cluster and connect that to Snowflake securely using key pair authentication, where you set it up with the user on the Snowflake side, and you can pair that together. Now, at the very end, we've seen how to then automate that using a producer, using the Python connector for Snowflake, writing data into a Confluent cluster, which is then syncing that into Snowflake, and we can build a true end-to-end IoT pipeline using some of the best of breed technologies with great agility, great flexibility, bringing data to our users, opening up with the power of Snowflake, and then they can consume it as such. So guys, hopefully this was helpful to you. If you did find this valuable, let me know by commenting below, liking the video, sharing the video, and letting me know if you have any questions about topics like this that you want me to tackle or to make a video about. I will be more than happy to do so. That said, I have been through. You have been awesome. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next video.